Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. Welcome to our show that's for you and about you, those who work so freaking hard for your money, and you want your money to start working harder for you right now. You want that freedom, cash flow, and prosperity today, not 30 or 40 billion years from now, but right now to live that life that you love with those that you love. But guys, it's not just about getting rich, it's about living a rich life. Because as you are blessed financially, you have the greater ability to impact more lives. So again, guys, thank you for tuning in and binging and allowing me to create that ripple effect through you. Again, you guys have been amazing, just some of the best listeners out there. Again, I'm biased, but it's true. As a reminder, be sure to join our Facebook group, the Money Ripplers page, right? Go join that, especially if you want to start having conversations, start having, really where we get to talk together and share ideas. And you know what? I get some of the best topic ideas from you guys on that page. So be sure to go check that out on Facebook now.
Chris Miles was able to retire twice by the time he was 39 years old, but he's not content to just enjoy his own financial freedom and peace of mind. Chris wants you to have your own ripple effect so you can live free today. He's not the financial advisor you expected. He's the anti-financial advisor you deserve. He's jumping behind the mic right now, ready to make waves. Here's Chris Miles.
So guys, I got a repeat guest. I think it's a three-peat for us, at least. If it's not a four-peat, it's at least a three-peat. I brought back Marc Mawhinney. Now, for those of you guys that haven't heard from him from previous episodes back, Marc is like the coach of coaches, right? This guy, I mean, he's got natural born coaches that he's done before. He's got the Coaching Jungle Facebook page. So as I just talked about going to our Facebook page, if you're a coach of any sorts, definitely go out, check out the Coaching Jungle. I don't think I know a bigger coaching Facebook page out there today. So go check that out. Awesome stuff. But, again, Marc has been through everything. He's been an entrepreneur. He's been a real estate agent and investor. I mean, he's been all over the place, and he's up in Canada right now, being awesome to join us today on our show. So Marc, welcome back.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me back. I'm kind of like the Bill Murray to your David Letterman, because Bill Murray had been on Letterman's show, 100 times or something like that. So
exactly,
we'll get up there, but no, I appreciate the invite back.
Yeah. No, so give us just a brief, for those that haven't gone back that far, because that was probably over 100 episodes ago now. Give us a brief overview of your background and what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so my background, like you mentioned, is in real estate. I did that for about a decade throughout my 20s and into my 30s. The term dirty 30s had that definitely hit for me, because that's when I went belly up and everything came crashing down, was in my early 30s. So I thought, ooh, that's why they call it the dirty 30s. That actually led me into coaching, though, because there was a couple of years going through the wilderness where I had to hire coaches to figure out what the heck I was going to do going forward. And I ended up starting a coaching business in 2014, and here we are today, about 8 years later. So that's it in a nutshell, the kind of Cliff's Notes version.
Yeah, you went through a very similar kind of episode I went through during the last recession, and you definitely had to pick yourself back up off the ground like I did.
Well, it's some of the stories you told me about your situation kind of hit home too, and I think it's something that never completely leaves you. It's kind of like a wound that's scarred over, so you can kind of see it, but it doesn't sting as much. But I'm grateful for the lessons learned. I would rather not go through it again. I'm good. We're all good here. But I was just talking to someone earlier today, and I said to that person, I wouldn't be chatting with you here today if things had worked out in real estate. So, the universe works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I know we've had previous episodes. We had you talking about how to do advertising on a shoestring budget. We've talked about also like doing daily emails, which was, completely seemed crazy. But I mean, you've been doing that for, I don't know, 6-7 years straight, right?
Yeah, it was April 2016 was the first, when I first started daily emails, and knock on wood, I haven't missed a day yet. So
6 years, that's what, 2,000 emails you've sent out.
Well,
the thing is you repurpose them, which is kind of cool, but now I've started to realize it.
I worked it out. I forget what it was when I last checked, 2,200 days or something like that. But then there were, of course, multiple email days too. So we're probably up to over 3,000 emails in those, 2,000 and some days.
Wow.
But yeah, I cheat a little bit. Like you said, I sometimes repurpose. I may tweak a little bit, but there's a lesson for anyone listening that's interested in getting started with that is future you will present you because the work you're doing now could turn into content down the road that you can reuse.
Absolutely. I need to take a lesson out of your book many times.
Yeah.
Even when I get your emails, I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I do that. That's a good reminder. So, well, let's talk about today because the topic we chose was really about, polarizing, right? Which we're in a world of polarization right now. I mean, people get mad about everything about anyone, and it's crazy. And I know for me personally, like I have a polarizing topic, but I try not to be a jerk. And so I would love to give your take on it. Like, how do you do it the correct right way? Because I've seen people be just in your face, just absolute idiots, like when they do it. And then I've seen people that really like get a loyal fan base too. How do you find that right balance? Like, how do you help? Like, well, first off, why do coaches need to polarize in the first place?
So a lot of coaches are hanging around that mushy middle, I call it, where they're just playing it safe. They don't want to lose an email subscriber or have someone unfriend them on Facebook or whatever. And unfortunately, that's not going to really probably lead to success. You're playing it too safe. If the old saying, if you don't have any haters,
Mhm.
So I prefer to play on the outsides of that, where you've got your people attacking you, but you've got your raving fans there too. I think you're much better off doing it that way. But you made a good point that you can't just say, okay, I'm going to be a jerk and poke the bear needlessly or be inauthentic. So I always think when you're being polarizing, it has to be grounded in actual beliefs that you have. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll touch on topics that they say that you're not supposed to touch on when you're in business or you're in coaching. So I
Mhm.
do touch on some political things and stuff like that. But it's stuff that I actually believe. And I like to think that I can back up what I'm saying with a well-reasoned logic, and stuff like that. It's things I've been thinking about for a long time. What you don't want to do is years ago, right after Tony Robbins had released his documentary in 2016, I Am Not
Mhm.
Your Guru. I don't know if you saw that one, but Tony throughout was dropping F bombs every second word. It was F this, F that. I don't know what his deal was. If you ever want to do a drinking game, take a shot every time Tony curses in it. You'll be flat on your behind very quickly. But what happened after that documentary came out on Netflix? In the weeks after, I noticed all these other coaches who I'd been following for a while, been connected with, they previously didn't curse. Suddenly
Mhm.
they're cursing like sailors. And I remember
Yeah.
one of them it's being really kind of silly. This is the wrong way to polarize. He's saying stuff like, if you don't go for your effing dreams, you're an effing piece of crap and go get an effing job and F off. That was his version of, oh, look, I'm being so edgy or whatever. And it came
Mhm.
across really silly because I knew him from before and he wasn't like that with it. So that's what I say. It has to be grounded in actual beliefs. You're not just doing it, poking the bear, just to do it. You actually believe strongly in something and you want to put that message out there.
Yeah. Well, why do you think it's such like when done properly, right? Like not trying to be inauthentic with it, like you were saying, where people are just being copycats. And there's been a lot of those, especially with, I know Gary Vee's kind of the same way. And a lot of people just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what you do as a coach, right? Like let's just swear like a sailor or whatever it is. And, that kind of thing. Right. But I mean, what is exactly that right way to do it? Like what kind of things should you be polarizing about?
Oh, well, ideally, it's something that ties into your offer. So I know with you, for
Mhm.
example, you've got probably a very different mindset or message than Dave Ramsey, or something
So
like
I've been
that. Or
told.
yeah, I know that you're not one of these guys that says, "Hey, if you change your coffee, you can save 25 cents a day by buying the stuff at the crappy coffee at the corner store, and by the
Yeah.
time you're 117, you'll be able to afford a new car with the savings from it, or something like that." So that's one great way to do it. To be polarizing is to pick someone in your niche,
Mhm.
and preferably a big name that you legitimately disagree with something with. So if you're a sales coach and let's say Grant Cardone puts out a
Mhm.
video saying that you should follow up every day for 30 days until they say yes, but you disagree with that, you could put it out there. You don't have to be a dink and say Grant Cardone's a jerk and he's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. But you're saying, for example, the other day I watched a video from Grant, and I don't know if Grant Cardone believes this, by the way. I'm just using this
Mhm.
as an example. The other day I saw a video from Grant Cardone. He said that you should follow up for every day for 30 days until a prospect says yes. I actually disagree with this, and this is why I disagree with it. And then you're going to put out there. So anyone who likes Grant Cardone is probably going to check out your stuff, because they're going to see if they want to hate you or, or what for doing it. But people who don't like Grant Cardone are going to check out your stuff too, because that's interesting, and you're doing the exact opposite. What most people do is they just kiss everyone's behind. They say what they think people want to hear. There's 8 billion people in the world. You'd have to piss off an awful lot of people to have no potential clients out of 8 billion people in the world.
That's right. That's true. What are ways that people can do it? Like for me personally, like I'm really asking this more from my perspective, I guess, than maybe everybody else's, but like, I know I usually don't get haters unless I do Facebook ads, right? Fastest way to find haters, just do that. And maybe my haters just don't want to talk about it, point blank. They're too scared. And so they just go do it off to the sideline, which I'm fine with. All right. But for a lot of people, I know that, sometimes they get in that mushy middle, right? They don't want to, they don't want to be too much, right? What are some good ways to make sure that, how can they overcome that? Really, that's, I think, the big thing. How do you overcome that psyche?
Well, it gets easier the more you do it. You get a thick skin. If you ever want to get a really high open rate on your emails, one of the highest opened emails I ever sent out had just 2 words in the subject line. The first word was Donald, and the second word was Trump.
And you're Canadian. Yeah,
I'm Canadian. I'm a Canadian who doesn't follow the what Canadians are supposed to be like and say, this guy's the Antichrist and he's awful and I'm so glad that he's gone or whatever. I've said before in my emails or whatever, you can learn a lot from Trump, whether you agree with him politically or not. But unfortunately, a lot of people will say, well, I can't stand that man, so I'm not going to learn from his story. Or on the flip side of it, people who hate Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton just naturally disqualify any lessons they can learn from that. I've got the books from people that I don't agree with politically back in my bookcase, but I can usually get nuggets out of there. But there's a cheap way to get engagement. Put Donald Trump, or you say Barack Obama or Joe Biden or whatever in the subject line. You'll probably get a lot of stuff. But no, I think see, for me, we talk about politics. I'm one of the rare coaches that admits that I'm a capitalist and that I don't think rich people are evil and we should eat the rich and everything else. And I know a lot of coaches are kind of buying into that, where it's cool to attack rich people. They're all evil and, they're kind of like comic book villains trying to take over the world or whatever. When I talk about my love of capitalism, your country, I love that about America. I get pushback from that from some people, but I get a lot of people that are engaging with me, sharing it, or agreeing with me. So when I talked about, for example, a movie I've talked about often over the years is The Founder, which talks about the movie about Ray Kroc. Excellent movie. Michael Keaton's great in that movie. And he basically shows how Ray Kroc built McDonald's into what it is. And whenever I talk about The Founder and how entrepreneurs should watch that, I get a lot of bleeding heart, far left, Occupy Wall Street types that are like, oh, he was awful. He was blah, 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 or whatever. And I say, hey, I'm not saying he's a saint. He probably
he's human.
Did some stuff. Did some stuff to the McDonald's brothers that maybe wasn't cool. But that being said, the McDonald brothers weren't doing anything with McDonald's. It was they weren't able to really franchise it. They were wanting to stick to their one store in San Bernardino or wherever in California. Ray Kroc actually took it, some 50-some-year-old milkshake salesman or mixer salesman, and actually grew it into what is or be no McDonald's without Ray Kroc. And they actually made, I think he gave them a check for $1 million, which wasn't a small amount of money way back when too. So I'm like, you can learn a lot from Ray Kroc. So that's one way I could tie capitalism and some of my politics, which people say, oh, gee, it's conservative or, it's pro-business or whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, if you're in business, you should want to make a profit and be pro-business. And so I can connect the two of them. They go in very well together. You won't see me tweeting tax the rich or eat the rich or whatever the Bernie bros are saying.
Exactly. So I think this is like the $1 million question, right? Is that when done right, you get some really you start getting real fans, right? It's not just people that think, oh yeah, I like their stuff. Like you get people that actually go to battle for you, which I think is like the real measure of whether this is working or not. How do you get them to that point? Like, how do you get people to get to the point where even if there are haters, those people start attacking them like wolves, right? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't have a plan where I say to people, okay, like, I wouldn't message you and say, hey, Chris, some idiot commented negatively on my
Yeah.
Facebook post. Do you mind going over and just ripping them a new one, like, or something like that?
Yeah. You shouldn't
Um,
have to.
no, exactly. What I actually do, it's an interesting topic. When I get haters coming in, I usually don't directly engage them because you can waste a lot of time with people who have all day to spend, right? And our
Hmm.
time's more valuable. But what I like to do is use their hate to turn it into sales. So I'd use it as content fodder. If I
Uh-huh.
get something that someone says, smart alecky remark or whatever, I could turn that into an email or a post where I'll say, Joe Smith left me this lovely comment or replied to yesterday's email with this brilliant reply. And then
Mhm.
I spin it into something that, my 2 cents or whatever. And then, oh, by the way, I go over this in greater detail, in module 2 of my XYZ program. You can check it out here. So I'm
Yeah.
not fighting with back and forth. He's actually making sales for me. Joe Smith or Mary Jones,
Hmm.
whoever's attacking me, they're my unofficial salespeople in a way.
I love that perspective. That's great. And do you ever delete those kind of comments, or you just let them go no matter what they are?
I haven't been getting as many of them as I probably should,
Mhm.
and part of it's because I've changed the way I'm using social media. A couple of years ago, I really poked the bear. I
Mhm.
probably was, you know, I have a side of me that's contrarian, but also a side that likes to kind of stir the pot. Like I don't
Mhm.
like blah, boring stuff. The coaching world, a lot of it
Yeah.
puts you to sleep. So a few years ago, I really was probably doing more of it. The last year, especially with everything going on with COVID, debates and stuff like that, I've tried to pull back a little. So I haven't gotten a lot of people. A few months ago, I talked about our idiotic politicians and our here in Canada. God, I should move to the States. It's a lot of lockdown seems to be a thing.
Mhm.
We're almost as bad as Australia. So when I've talked about that, then I would get people chirping, well, we got to do this or whatever. If it saves even one life, I said, well, a lot of people die in automobile accidents, so maybe we should take the cars off the road and we'll go back to horse and buggy because hey, if
Mhm.
it saves even one life, those things tend to get a lot of engagement that way. I don't get as much hate when I talk about coaching things. So, for example, if I put something up there which about spammy private messages, people sending the cold pitches and trying to do stuff like that, I find a lot of people agree with me on that. The coaches and a lot of times, so I wouldn't get people 10 or 20 negative comments on something like that. It's
Yeah.
usually the political hot button issues. So if
Mhm.
it's COVID stuff, if it was the riots going on with cities burning down the summer
Mm.
previous or something like that, those would get a lot of comments.
Oh, I bet. So I guess I'm going to ask you a little bonus question here too. And okay, I'm gonna have to have the producers to pause for a second or cut out this part because I'm like, what the heck was that question?
No problem.
Oh, well, I remember what it is. It's actually it ties with one of your other topics. That's why. All right, so we're coming back, guys. Okay, so the next question, this is kind of a bonus question for you, Marc. I know with those daily emails and content, I know there's a lot of coaches out there that have a hard time figuring out like how do I even come up with that much content. How do you find that? Because I know you find it from all kinds of sources, and you make it seem so simple. How do you find that content that you can really give and actually use that as a way to bring in more people?
So once you start creating a lot of content, it gets easier. You're
Hmm.
building up your content creation muscles. I get it from stories in my life. Uh, I get it from client stories. Now, you want to
Hmm.
keep confidentiality in mind, of course.
Of
You got to
course.
be careful there. I get them if I'm watching a movie, books I'm reading, blogs. God, if I'm ever stuck, if I go into my Facebook group, which you mentioned, the coaching jungle,
Hmm.
scroll down the wall, there's tons of content ideas there. I may answer a question, but and send an email to my list answering the question or whatever. I have a whole infographic. If you want, I can give you the link because it's on my website. And that infographic gives a bunch of different places and content creation tips. So if it's cool, can I give the link?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it's I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it's this. It's naturalborncoaches.com/content creation machine. I know that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Naturalborncoaches.com/content creation machine. And that lays out, exactly where I get my content ideas.
I love it. Yeah. One of the things I admire the most is like you just watch a movie sometimes, right? You watch Spider-Man or something like that, and you're like, content, I got it. Here it is. And It's
Yeah, it's weird how it happens. It's probably a bad habit. I'll have like my moleskin next to me or a notepad. I'm
Mhm.
jotting it down. My fiance's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I had an idea for an email, or whatever."
Uh-huh.
Um, we're currently binge. She got me watching Vanderpump Rules. If I ever want to turn my business brain off, we'll watch an episode before bed. I got
Mhm.
ideas coming in from this. I don't know if you watch it. It's a trashy reality show. I'm like, oh, okay, there's something there.
There's a lesson to be everywhere, right?
Yeah, Vanderpump Rules. There's stuff there. Any of the shows, but yeah, people will say sometimes to me like, "Well, it's easy for you, Marc, but I don't have any place yet. Like, I don't have any stories in my life or whatever." I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
care who you are, how old you are, where you live, your background or whatever. Everyone has stories that
Yeah.
they can take and they can turn into it. A cheap way to get content. I say cheap way. I should say an easy way to get content. If you're a reader, like I know a lot of your people watching this or listening are probably readers. Um, if I'm ever stuck, the type that highlights my books and write notes and everything else when I'm reading. So if I'm ever stuck, I'll go back to the bookshelf. I'll take a book out of there and I'll just look for the
Yeah.
highlighted passages because that obviously resonated with me. And there's probably content that I can spin out from that as well. So
That's a great idea.
yeah, it gets easier. I just say stick with it because when I started doing daily emails, took me probably an hour to write an email, and now I can usually crank one out 10, 15 minutes tops with it. So it does get easier.
Fantastic. Well, this has been good stuff, Marc. And again, we'll put that link in there for that gift. I really appreciate the generosity there. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. If our listeners want to be able, or they want to be able to reach out to you or be able to get see more of what you've got, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, there's naturalborncoaches.com. They can check out the podcast. You were actually, by the time this comes out, you were on my show a few months ago
Yeah.
in there. So you can check out your episode 745, I think, or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So it's naturalborncoaches.com. Also, the Facebook group is at thecoachingjungle.com. And I have a print newsletter for coaches at secretcoachclub.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marc. Again, wealth of information, and you guys can obviously see why we brought him back for at least a three-peat, right? So again, thank you so much for the content you've given us and the generosity today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
So, and everybody else, hey, you hear it all the time, right? It's one thing to listen to this stuff. It's another thing to do it. And seriously, like, it's great to hear Marc's story, but the stuff that he gave us, all these gems, especially if you're in the online coaching space or even just offline coaching space, there's so much great content he gave you here that could literally explode your business and help you increase your revenue, therefore increasing your cash flow. So, and that's the focus of this show, guys. So again, if you just listen to this stuff and do nothing, it doesn't work. You got to take action. So go and make it a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you later.
Visit us online at moneyripples.com for more resources to help you fix money leaks and get your money working harder for you now.